All righty, we'll call this meeting to order. Any additions, corrections, or changes to last month's meeting? Not meeting, minutes. If none, a motion to accept, please.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Atkinson, second by Mr. Lockwood.
Chair Davenport, we need to call roll.
You know what? That's a good idea. I just sit down here and I started, it does say roll call up here, doesn't it? Would you mind calling the roll, then we'll come back and point it. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Ms. Atkinson,
Yes.
Mr. Ferguson,
Yes.
Dr. Fitz,
Yes.
Mr. Howell,
Yes.
Mr. Lockwood,
Yes.
Ms. Price,
Yes.
Chair Davenport.
Yes, sir. Now, you want to call the roll, motion by Ms. Atkinson, second by Mr. Lockwood to approve the minutes.
Apologies.
That's not, you're
Ms.
fine.
Atkinson,
Yes.
Mr. Ferguson,
Yes.
Dr. Fitz,
Yes.
Mr. Howell,
Yes.
Mr. Lockwood,
Yes.
Ms. Price,
Yes.
Chair Davenport.
Yes. Before we begin our hearing tonight, our counselor, where are you, Hoy? Everybody's moving around on me, blah. Our counselor, Mr. Hoy. Our counselor will tell you what you have to do to get your request approved.
Okay, before we get started, on both of these applications tonight, if you'd make a part of the record, the joint zoning ordinance of Warren County, comprehensive plan, the staff report, and any exhibits which may be attached to those reports should also be made a part of the record. And you need to swear in Amy Scott, please, and recognize her qualifications as zoning administrator, and she'll be testifying as expert witness.
Amy, do you swear to tell the truth?
I do.
Thank you, ma'am.
We just have two applications tonight, and both pertain to conditional use permit. And there are certain findings that the board must make on the conditional use permit, and those are set forth in section 3.9.5 of the zoning ordinance. The board must find that the requested use is not detrimental to the public health, safety, or welfare in the zone in which it is proposed, that the use will not contribute toward an overburdening of municipal services, that the use will not constitute a nuisance or otherwise violate any provisions of the zoning ordinance, and that it also adequately addresses the review criteria in section 3.9.4. And if there are any specific use standards, which there are in both these applications tonight, those must also be addressed. And I mentioned the review criteria in section 3.9.4. And that section of the statute states that the board shall not grant your conditional use permit unless you adequately address all the review criteria, one of which is compatibility. So it is your burden to address compatibility. The second application also contains a variance, and Mr. Carter, you've been here so many times, I'm not going to bore you with requirements. In either case, you need a majority vote of those present. A pass vote has no force or effect. If anyone feels aggrieved by this decision rendered here tonight, you would have 30 days to file an appeal, and that would go directly to Warren Circuit Court.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Yes.
Our first request tonight, Ed Griffin, applicant, and ELG Holdings LLC owner, have filed an application for conditional use permit in order to operate a short-term rental on the property located at 1410 Kenton Street. This property is zone RM3, townhouse, multifamily residential. Amy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We had a pre-application meeting on July 16th for the property that you mentioned. The current zoning is RM3. The current land use is single-family residential. And the existing land use is single-family residential. Let's see. The applicants are proposing, requesting a CUP to operate a short-term rental. The site plan can be found on page 7 of your staff report. We also have pictures within the PowerPoint presentation, should we need to look at those for any reason. Looking down at the zoning ordinance reference, Article 5, Section 5.1, use table states that a conditional use permit is required to operate a short-term rental on property zoned RM3. Bottom of page 1 are the specific use standards for short-term rental for your review. Looking over at page 2 for the conditions that the applicant supplied. Number 1, a maximum of 2 rooms for rent. Number 2, a maximum of 2 guest vehicles in the designated parking areas. Number 3, quiet hours will be from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. Number 4, there will be no signage on the property. Number 5, if the property is ever sold or the applicant ceases the use, the CUP will be null and void. Below that are the conditional use permit findings for reference. And then looking back over to page 1, to the points to consider, the Board of Adjustment should consider if the proposed use is compatible with the surrounding area, including the existing single-family residential uses located in the general vicinity and adjacent to the property. And the board should consider the impact on permanent workforce housing availability in this part of the city if the existing single-family residence is converted into short-term rental. That's all we have for a staff report. Be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions of the staff? Yeah.
I have a question. Amy, I just want to be sure. On our diagram in red, which I'm not sure the diagram matches exactly, these are single-family residential occupancy.
Yes. So looking
correct?
over at the existing land use map there, so the property that's highlighted, that single-family use, and then the red would be multifamily. Anything in the purple is a commercial use.
So everything on that street, though, is single, we are either looking at single-family, but they're all individual residences.
Correct. The ones that are in the highlighted
except
in
for the
yellow,
one-
except
yeah.
for, yes.
Oh, got it, okay.
All right.
Amy, if you would, RM3, that means that you can have how many units on that land?
Townhome, multifamily, the Flume. Is it?
The units are based on the lot areas,
Yeah.
Okay.
so.
So you could have a,
So it varies by lot size in the RM3 zone. So if this property were to have at least 10,000 square feet of lot area, you could have two units.
you could have a duplex. Now, the RM4, which is next to it, how many units could you have on that?
I think that's an existing, is that an existing fourplex?
It is.
The purple?
So in RM4, the number of units isn't based on any type of lot area, it's just determined based on being able to meet the required setbacks and parking.
I
So
understand.
it just varies.
So
based on-
it could be 10,
Probably not 10, just
but
because
an
of
eightplex.
lot size.
You couldn't give it.
Based on the parking, the amount of
Yeah.
land used to get your parking. So if you had 10 units, you'd probably have to go 10 stories and have 1 unit on each story and try to fit 10 parking spots on that property.
So in other words,
Because the lots are
the
too small.
neighborhood is prime for other developments in the near future as far as that zoning is concerned. It's just not single-family residential.
Well, this
It is.
particular lot, possibly, but in the event that any of the development was proposed next to a single-family residential property, like if we went across the street, for example, and you tried to build multifamily with single-family on either side, you have a 25-foot building setback that's going to squeeze your building envelope.
Well, you'd have to buy more than one lot and make a combination. But I guess the point, I'm looking at all the red, I'm looking at all the blue, which is commercial, and I love to keep single family, but this is zoned RM3, RM4, and commercial, just within 100 feet of each other.
A lot of spot zoning there.
Well, no, it's pretty clear,
Well, I'm looking at the,
but that's the only point I was trying to make.
Sure, yeah, I mean, the land use map shows that there are mixed uses.
Yeah.
any other questions of the staff from the board? Thank you, Amy. Is the applicant here? Would you step up so we can swear you in, please? Give us your full name and address.
Edward Lamar Griffin, 832 Huntington Street.
You swear to tell the truth, sir?
I do.
Thank you. You heard Mr. Hodges mention compatibility in the neighborhood, and you've heard us discussing it just now, that most of it's single-family residential. And obviously, you're wanting to put in a short-term rental, which is a business, a mini hotel type thing. How's that compatible with the existing single-family residential in that block?
Well, it is between two commercial buildings, so you've got multifamily on either side of it, then you've got commercial behind it. Everything on Kenton Street, I mean, I'm not saying no one doesn't own and live there permanently, but it's all rental area. We've been running an Airbnb out of there for 2 years and never had a complaint or any disruptions in the neighborhood.
When you mention the commercial, I agree with you. The block below yours is commercial stuff on it.
Right.
But the block that you're in, it does have the apartment building there in the corner, but the rest of that block is still pretty much single-family residential.
Correct.
Until you get up close to Broadway, then there's a block or two in there.
Right.
Are you concerned that once we open up another business there on this block, that's not going to just allow more and more of that block to become more and more commercial, and the next block becomes more and more commercial, and before you know it, that single-family neighborhood or residential use is gone by the wayside?
Am I concerned with that? No. I'm
Okay.
not.
All right. Any other questions from the board of the applicant? Do you own any other properties in the same area?
Yes, sir. I own 1244 Kenton, 1260 Kenton, 1416 High Street, a lot of properties.
If you get this one approved, you're going to come down and try to get the rest of them short-term rental too?
No.
Okay. All right, any other questions from the board of the applicant? All right, thank you, sir, I appreciate it.
Okay.
Any opposition to this request? Motion, please.
I make the motion to deny the conditional use permit docket number 2024-C-26 for a short-term rental located at 1410 Kenton Street. The use will result in increased traffic congestion, additional parking problems, substantial density. Primarily, it's incompatible with the single-family residences in the immediate area.
Okay, motion by Ms. Atkinson, second.
Second.
Second by Dr. Fitz.
Ms. Atkinson,
Yes.
Mr. Ferguson,
No, and the reason being is the zoning and the potential development of the entire neighborhood.
Dr. Fitz,
Yes.
Mr. Howell,
Yes.
Mr. Lockwood,
No, I agree with Mr. Ferguson.
Ms. Price,
No.
Chair Davenport.
Yes, I agree with Ms. Atkinson. Your motion's been denied, sir. You've got 30 days to appeal it to circuit court. Thank you for coming down. Our next request tonight, a Little TLC, LLC, and Tanya L. Roth Living Trust have filed an application for conditional use permit for agritourism on the property located at 1100 Rich Pond Road. The applicants have also filed a concurrent application for a variance from the required 250-foot setback for any outdoor areas used for music, bands, or other similar noise-generating activity from any residential district, use, or structure, and a variance from the maximum freestanding sign height. The property is zoned AG agricultural. Amy?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to point out a typo at the top of your staff report. It says conditional use permit, variance, and waiver staff report. Strike the waiver, it's just a conditional use permit and variance request. So we had a pre-application meeting for the property that you mentioned on May the 9th. The current zoning is agriculture. The current land use is agriculture. And again, the applicants are requesting a conditional use permit for agritourism use, more specifically for seasonal festivals, a pumpkin patch, flower garden, pond, group events, picnics, and weddings. The applicants are also requesting 2 variances associated with the agritourism use. If we look down below to the zoning ordinance reference, I'll review those for you. So Article 5, Section 5.1, Use Table, a conditional use permit is required to operate an agritourism use on the property zone agriculture. Article 5, Section 5.2.6.A, .5, .D, .3, .G, any outdoor areas used for music, band, or other similar noise-generating activity shall be located a minimum of 250 feet from any residential district use or structure. So that is variance request number 1 of 235 feet to allow the proposed outdoor wedding music area to be located 15 feet from the proposed lot number 2 property line. That can be displayed that is displayed on the site plan that's on page 10 of your staff report. And then looking down at Article 5, Section 5.2.6.A, .5, .D, .3, .F, signage shall be limited to one freestanding sign not to exceed 5 feet in height and 32 square feet in sign face area, and no sign shall be internally illuminated. And that's where the second variance request comes from, a variance of 3.5 feet to allow the existing freestanding sign to be 8.5 feet in height. We do have a picture of that for your reference. Looking over at page 2 is the zoning ordinance reference for agritourism. Getting into page 3 are the list of conditions that the applicant supplied. Number 1, permitted uses on the property shall include seasonal festivals, pumpkin patch, flower garden, pond, group events, picnics, and weddings and receptions. Number 2, days and hours of operation shall be 7 days a week, 8 a.m. to 12 a.m. No music shall be permitted after 11 p.m. Number 3, agritourism uses shall be limited to a maximum of 350 people on the property, except in the case of a designated special event. Designated special event shall be permitted up to 4 times a year, per year, and shall be limited to a maximum of 500 people on the property. Number 4, the conditional use permit shall only apply to the proposed lot number 1 as depicted on the exhibit. Number 5, the northernmost access point on Bettersworth Road will be permanently closed, and the proposed new access point to Bettersworth Road, as shown on the exhibit, will be coordinated with the Warren County Public Works Department. Below that are the conditional use permit findings, as well as the variance findings. And looking at page 4, the applicants did supply a narrative as part of their application to address those variance requirements, and the board should consider if the applicants have adequately addressed the findings required for granting the variance, or the variances, I'm sorry. And then looking back at page 1 to the points to consider at the bottom of the page, the proposed uses are appropriate in the ag zone and are generally compatible in the ag zone with a conditional use permit and are generally compatible with the surrounding area. However, there are no other existing businesses in the general vicinity that have the hours of operation the applicants are proposing. Applicants could have selected another location on the property for the outdoor component, and variance number 1 would not be necessary. The variance does not arise from special circumstances, which do not generally apply to the land in the general vicinity, and there are not any extraordinary or exceptional topographical conditions that would deprive the property owner of the reasonable use of the land. An applicant did not apply for a permit for the existing sign located on the property. The applicants could alter the sign height to meet the zoning ordinance requirements, and variance number 2 would not be necessary. That's all we have for a staff report. Happy to answer any questions.
Is the variance for the music area, is it for the big house that's there?
It is.
Is that the
home.
property owner's home?
It is.
So they own the, I'm confused.
Well,
I'm not
it's a
confused, but
Yeah, it's a
if they own
requirement of the zoning ordinance.
I'm
It's a
sorry,
requirement of the zoning ordinance for
just
that.
because it's on lot 2 and the other one's on lot 1, even
Correct.
though they own the adjoining property?
Yep.
Okay. All right, any other questions from the board of the staff? We were kind of confused about that. We thought, I understand.
Yeah, the zoning ordinance reference is there.
If they'd excluded lot 2, then the variance wouldn't have been necessary, correct?
Well, it would still be adjacent to a single-family use, so.
As long as
yeah.
it's single family.
Yeah,
Oh,
so
oh,
it
so it
still
didn't make
is a
any
requirement.
difference?
Yeah.
Okay,
Whether they
okay,
own it or
okay.
not.
All right,
Or live there or not.
Yeah.
that's fine, that's good. All right, any other questions from the board or the staff? Applicants are here, I'm sure we might have to, you want to represent them, go right ahead.
Good afternoon, Chairman Davenport, board members. Tad Pardue, 1010 College Street, next door, I swear to tell the truth. And I'm glad that you asked that question, Chairman Davenport. I was going to point that out if none of the board members were to ask that. My clients are James and Tanya Coron. This is them to my left, to your right.
Okay.
They live in the historic home here, so I thought that was important to point out, because when you see a request for a 235-foot variance from a 250-foot requirement, I know that kind of stands off the page. So technically speaking, we're talking about a variance from the home in which they're living. I think a rough estimate, that little area where they do the ceremonies and the music is about, I think, 350 to 400 feet from the next closest single-family use. You all might be familiar with the property. It's a beautiful piece of property in a beautiful area of Warren County. Again, the CUP is for an agritourism use. This is an area surrounded by agriculture. So the thought there is, through the various activities and features on the property, that it would allow others to enjoy some of those features and the agricultural nature of the property. So unless there are any other specific questions of myself or Mr. and Mrs. Coron, that's really all I had to present.
Just on the same, when you put the stage there, will the stage be facing the back of the property or Rich Pond Road?
So I'm not even sure it's a stage.
You want, yeah.
You want, come on up, Tanya, and they'll need to
We
get
need
your
to
name
get
and
your
swear
full
to
name and
tell the truth.
address,
So Tanya Roth Corin, 1100 Rich Pond Road.
and you swear to tell the
I
truth,
swear to
ma'am?
tell the truth.
Okay. Will the stage be facing which way?
If there,
All right, for
mostly it's a
stage.
ceremony site, so it's usually just, a speaker where there might be the music that they're playing for the person to walk down the aisle, et cetera, that you might have during it. If we had a stage out there, like a mobile stage, it would definitely face backwards towards the barn, because you wouldn't have it facing towards the road. It would face towards the barn, because that's the way they would come in.
Well, that's logical, but not everybody always does everything logical. I understand. As far as the sign goes, the reason you didn't get a permit in the first place?
Didn't know any better.
I didn't know any better. So I went to where there was a sign already there. I changed the logo. I went to Signature Sign and said, I need the new logo on the new sign, and here's where the posts are. We used the same post, but we took the sign out farther to the edges because I didn't want it to be inside, because it was swinging before, and it kept falling down, so we made it wider. But I didn't know to make a...
Have you been operating this for a period of time?
Yeah, we purchased the property 2 years ago, and when we purchased it as a turnkey operation. So we were under the impression it already had a permit to run a venue there. So as soon as we found out it didn't, I contacted my friends here and said, okay, we got to get the right kind of permit done so we can operate it right.
And I think the prior owners had been operating it for about 10 years.
Since 2013.
Did it maybe fall underneath before they changed the ordinance where they had to get the permit to do it at one time, agritourism?
No, the previous owner was operating for a while under temporary use permits, where they were only having a handful of events per year.
Okay.
But then at some point, they just stopped applying and were operating out of compliance.
Okay. And 350, what's the 4 events where you have 500 people?
Like a harvest fest, where you might have craft vendors in there and some food trucks, and where they would, we don't know how many there'd be at one time, but there'd never be more than 500 at one time. But you assume they would rotate during the day as they're coming in.
Okay. And there's adequate parking, I assume, in the field back there for
Yeah,
many
if you
people?
flip back to the layout sign, I was going to ask Chase, how many does it come up to? 180, I think.
There's parking depicted on the,
Yeah, it's a very large parking lot.
Yeah, I went back there, we just like to put on the record that you
Yeah,
have.
yeah, so I think it's about 180. Yeah.
Okay, all right. All right, any other questions from the board or the applicant? Any
Has
questions?
there ever been any concern about your operation?
We've never had a complaint or any concern from anyone regarding the operations there. It's always gone pretty smooth.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions from the board or the applicants? All right. Thank you all very much. Any opposition to this request? Have any opposition? I guess what, Hoy, we need 3 motions on this. We need one for the conditional use and 2 for the, one each for the variance. Okay, all right. Motion, please.
Make a motion to approve the conditional use permit docket number 2024-C-28 for agro-tourism located at 1100 Ridge Pond Road with the conditions as presented in the staff report. Testimony presented in the public hearing has shown that the issues are not detrimental to the public health, safety, or welfare in the zoning which is proposed. The uses will not contribute to an overburden of municipal services. The uses will not result in increased traffic congestion, additional parking problems, substantial increase in population density, environmental problems, or constitute a nuisance, and that this otherwise meets the requirements of the zoning ordinance, and I feel like it is a compatible use.
Okay.
Second?
Motion by Dr. Fitz, second by Ms. Atkinson. We're okay? All right. Call her, please.
Dr. Fitz,
Yes?
Mr. Howell,
Yes.
Mr. Lockwood,
Yes.
Ms. Price,
Yes.
Ms. Atkinson,
Yes.
Mr. Ferguson,
Yes.
Chair Davenport.
Yes. And now a motion for the
Make
First
a
variance.
motion that we approve the request for variance at 1100 Rich Pond Road, docket number 2024-V-17, a variance of 235 feet from the required 250-foot setback for any outdoor area used for music, bands, or other similar noise-generating activity from which any residential district use or structure, and a variance of 3.5 feet to allow an existing freestanding sign to 8.5 feet in height. Are those have to be done separately?
Yeah, one for the band and one for the
Yeah,
sign.
you can,
I'm sorry, well,
Can we do them together?
Is this okay?
There's no
He's
problem.
okay.
Oh, I thought you said we wouldn't need one for each variance.
I
One.
just didn't want the conditional use permit.
Okay, I'm sorry, Doctor. Yes, you can do them
is
together.
it okay?
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
And a variance of 3.5 feet to allow an existing freestanding sign to 8.5 feet in height. Testimony presented in this public hearing has shown that granting of this variance will not adversely affect the public health, safety, or welfare, will not result in an alteration of the essential character of the general vicinity, will not cause a hazard or nuisance to the public, and will not allow an unreasonable circumvention of the requirements of the zoning regulations. And it seems compatible with the proposed use.
Proper motion.
Okay.
Second?
Motion, Dr. Fitz, second by Ms. Atkinson.
Dr. Fitz,
Yes?
Mr. Howell,
Yes.
Mr. Lockwood,
Yes.
Ms. Price,
Yes.
Ms. Atkinson,
Yes.
Mr. Ferguson,
Yes.
Chair Davenport.
Yes, your request has been approved. Thank you all, and good luck to you out there.
It's a very
nice
nice
property.
venue. I've been out there for a couple of weddings.
good
It's a beautiful place.
It's a good-looking place.
Very nice. Thank you all very much. Appreciate it. Hoy, I misunderstood. I thought you said we need a motion for each variance. I misunderstood what you said. Sorry. All right, any old business? Any new business? Any old, new business? Anything else? Y'all did a good job at the, whatever that was. I told Ben, you and Ben were the best 2 presenters they had. I have to, and not just because I know you, but y'all were the best. I think we all agreed on that. Y'all did good. All right, anything else?
Mr. Chairman, there was on old business, an appeal that was pending with Bowling Green Assembly of God to operate a religious institution on Matlock Road, and Warren Circuit Court did affirm our decision.
Good.
So they'd have 30 days to file an appeal with the Court of Appeals, and I've received no notice.
Okay, good deal. That's the one on Matlock Road we're talking about.
That was a tough one.
Yeah. All right, anything else? Then we are adjourned. Thank you all.